everybody, this is Adam with the Game Good Arcade. Excited to be here with our latest acquisition to the arcade floor. And this is probably a game you have never heard of before, and for good reason, because it was never released until now. And that game is called the Spectre Files Deathstalker. Now, had this been released back in the day, it would have happened around 1985, maybe 1986, through Midway. But to get into a little bit of history here, 1984 was the time when Dragon's Lair popularized the Laserdisc technology. It wasn't the first game to use Laserdiscs in an arcade setting. That was Sega's Astron Belt, I believe, in 1983, but it was the first time that at least showed the potential of being able to show what you could do with full motion video and make it interactive, or at least seem interactive. And so that brought a lot of players back out to arcades, and there were long lines for a little while anywhere where you have the Dragon's Lair machine. Now, of course, in seeing that, pretty much every manufacturer wanted to jump into that fad and see what they could do with it. Atari had different Laserdisc projects. They released Firefox, and I can't remember, I don't think they did Mach 3, but in Midway was one of those companies. Midway, they released NFL football and a game called Star Rider. But unfortunately, Midway made a little bit of a boneheaded decision at the time, as they used a variation of the Laserdisc with NFL football that was called the CED, or I think it's capacitive electronic disc. So it looked like a Laserdisc, but instead of using a laser, it used a needle. So you can imagine, without thinking too hard, how that might have worked out in an arcade environment where somebody's pounding on the machine or what have you. And so, yeah, the game, even though it was innovative and interesting, it bombed in sales. It just did not do that well. And so because of that, Midway pulled the plug on their other Laserdisc projects, like they had Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, and this, the Spectre Files. Now, the Spectre Files was being worked on by Brian F. Collin, who he is known for games like Rampage, Arch Rivals, Sarge, many others. And so it was actually right after this was canceled in '85 that he really began in earnest to work on Rampage. And so that's one reason why we have these two games next to each other, is because, well, might as well keep it in the family, so to speak. But yeah, this is something we're very, very happy to have. Brian and the Galloping Ghost Productions out of is it Brookfield, Illinois? It's greater Chicago area. I just forgot here. But it was a couple of years ago, or almost 3 years ago, where Brian found the files, the footage to this, and began the work of restoring it and digitally remastering it. This screen here talks about that, and it was shot on a 16mm film, and he had the game code and whatnot. Now, it wasn't 100% complete, so they had to do some stuff to finish it up, and of course remaster it so it would work on an LCD screen, not use a laser disc, all of that. And so there are a few other instances while you're in the game where it shows something that's obviously a little more modern in there, but it's all been put together seamlessly and works great. So when it comes to the gameplay, this is unlike anything else in our arcade, or that you'll really find out in any arcade out there. Even among Laserdisc games, it's unique, as what you have is a very simple control panel. It's only 3 buttons, and when the game starts, it goes through a clip, and then you reach a certain point where it gives you a decision gate, and so it gives you 3 choices to go from. Each time it's always 3, and then depending on what you pick, that could be a good choice or it could be a bad choice, but you move on from there. And that's one thing that also is very interesting about this, in that it is a bit long for an arcade game. I mean, especially from games in the 80s. A lot of those games you could only play for maybe a few seconds before you lost all your lives if you weren't very good at it, or when you first approached it. So with practice, you would get better and better until you could defeat the game on 1 credit. But this one gives you a lot more time to be able to make mistakes and whatnot. There's no insta-deaths that I've come across, even when you made a bad decision. And it even has a little health bar as well, or hearts. So you can make some bad choices and still enjoy the game for a few minutes. I played through it once so far and made some pretty lousy decisions, I guess, for the most part, and ended up still playing for probably about 5 minutes. And so that's also where this one is going to be a great game to come back to, because unless you can remember exactly what you picked every time, or you just so happen to pick the same thing every time, there's things to explore, different scenes to explore, and there's also clues and objects that you can collect, and the game tracks that. And so the more objects that you successfully collect, the higher your score. But I won't spoil it from there, so come in and check it out. I'll have footage of this on my Arcade Heroes channel, and it even has our logo on there. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you come in and play it soon.